All right, moving on here. We have a story from RT, although not written by the great Will Porter, that's titled "Hillary Clinton Cooked Up Russiagate Smear to Smear Trump and Distract from Her Own Scandals." Declassified doc suggest. So, what is this document, Will, that suggests Hillary Clinton was at least involved in cooking up Russiagate? And how important is this?
Yeah, we actually have this disclosure actually was a couple different pieces of information, and it's like the latest in a series of document dumps over the last week. I think on the last show, I think, or the second to last show, we covered the ones that came from Michael Flynn's defense attorney, showing that the FBI was kind of like concerned that maybe their investigation into Trump would get them into trouble. We have the one we also covered the ones from John Durham on the whole Steele dossier thing. Durham is doing a criminal investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. But now, this week, we have a release from John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, the guy who like oversees all the intelligence agencies. And unfortunately, I don't think they actually put out the documents themselves publicly yet. Like they were just declassified. But what we do have is a summary of this material from Ratcliffe in a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee, specifically to Lindsey Graham, who chairs that committee. Like I said, there was three pieces of information. The first one is sort of what RT led with in that headline. It has to do with the U.S. says now, according to Ratcliffe, that they, in the summer of 2016, obtained this Russian intelligence assessment where, like, they're just presumably speaking amongst themselves internally, where they're saying they believe Hillary Clinton was going to try to manufacture a scandal about Trump and Russian hacking and collusion and all that, which is pretty consistent, I think, with our take on it, that is what happened, that she manufactured this. But we have now the Russians apparently talking amongst themselves about this. Now, of course, a lot of people in the mainstream press, the corporate media, are immediately dismissing this as, oh, this must just be like disinformation that was deliberately planted there and it's unverified intelligence and all this stuff. And I think it's amazing how suddenly they start caring about, unverified intelligence. They didn't seem to, they don't seem to mind basing every other story they write on some unverified crap from U.S. intelligence agencies. But from another agency, now they're going to get skeptical. And like, to be fair, like I will say, I can't prove that this first piece of information is not Russian disinfo. Like, I think I always try to acknowledge when something is just a claim, especially when it's from an intelligence agency. But the people who are just like like assuming that it must be disinformation, I think are also sort of speculating without evidence. Very well could be Russian disinfo, this intelligence assessment, but it also could suggest that the Russians were aware of what was happening here with the Clinton campaign and were discussing it internally. I think we can at least raise that as a possibility.
Right, and can I just add real quick, the fact that this
Yeah.
wasn't released by the Russians and only comes out through American intelligence 4 years after the report, I guess raises a little bit of questions as to if this was supposed to be some kind of counterintelligence like initiative. Why the hell didn't they do something about it sooner? It certainly doesn't seem like they would have had to wait for Ratcliffe to release it 4 years later if their goal
Right.
was to put this into the record, back in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just say that, oh, they were just trying to put stuff out there that hoping the US would sort of pick up on the trail and like, draw some conclusions from it. But again, like that's totally speculating. I don't have any real reason to believe that's what happened. However, there were two other pieces of information that all kind of track in the same direction about the Clinton campaign. Because Ratcliffe also said that there are handwritten notes from Obama's last CIA director, John Brennan, showing that he had actually briefed Obama on this stuff about Clinton, specifically about how one of her foreign policy advisors had floated this idea to start, telling tales about how Russia loves Trump and was, interfering in the U.S. election and all this stuff. And so apparently John Brennan had written about this in his own notes and talked to Obama about it a little bit. We don't know exactly what he told Obama, whether like, this is a good or bad thing, because we have some indication to believe that John Brennan himself was sort of involved in pushing this claim early on. It could very well be that he briefed Obama that like our plan is going ahead, accordingly or something. We don't know exactly what he talked about, but according to Ratcliffe, Brennan did write about this stuff in his notes, that the Clinton campaign was trying to spin up this whole scandal around Trump. And then the final thing we have is this final document that, again, they just declassified it. We don't have the document itself. But according to Ratcliffe, just before the 2016 race ended in September 2016, U.S. intelligence officials actually forwarded a report to the FBI, again, about how Clinton had approved this proposal to frame up Trump for this elaborate Russian conspiracy thing. And at that point, in September of 2016, the Clinton campaign had already started doing this. They were talking about hacking and all that stuff. They'd begun on this whole conspiracy theory. So these three pieces of information have like one common thread, I think, that like people within the intelligence community are suggesting that the Democratic candidate plotted to make up a scandal and what amounts to like an allegation of treason against the president. Um, like we have the CIA director John Brennan putting this in his notes, briefing Obama about it. We have this report that's apparently forwarded to the FBI, and we can imagine that they just kind of ignored that. Apparently, it was sent to James Comey and Peter Strzok, by some lower level person in the agency or in the bureau. And then finally, we have this thing about the Russians putting in their own intelligence assessment. So that's sort of what we have with these new documents, and all three things kind of all go in that same direction with the Clinton campaign and her attempt to frame up Trump for this whole Russia stuff.
Right. So, well, I think the dates on this are really interesting because a lot of it's like the summer of 2016 that it seems Hillary Clinton is 100% on board with this. And there's two things that really stuck out to me about that. One is that she was really concerned. It was then, the administration that she was previously a part of that was still in power. And so it seems like, there would have been the opportunity for her to like help push for an investigation or something to try to get the truth to the American people before the election. But it seems pretty clear that that wasn't at all a part of the goal, and this was more of a PR or political move. And it was only focused on the election. It wasn't focused on actually, trying to get to the potential truth of her rival candidate being a puppet of a enemy state to the United States. I think that was, that there's some discrepancy there that's hard to explain if you're Hillary Clinton as to if you really thought this was true. How was it that first of all, you weren't talking about from the very beginning all the time? If your candidate's a traitor, that seems like a pretty big deal. And for the most part, I feel like during the actual election, it doesn't come up very much. And in fact, during this time, it's Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama slamming Trump for in any way, suggesting that the election may be illegitimate. Trump was sowing discord. And it's not until she loses that they go into hyperdrive on this, and they insist that it must be Russia involvement that caused her to lose and all that. And then the other thing that really stuck out is just how involved Hillary seems to be in this now, which I think is a bigger scandal than if it was more her campaign. And then, she kind of adopts the line after she's convinced of it when she loses the election. But rather, she was on board with this from the very beginning. And maybe the sourcing on this is wrong. But if that's the case, then she has a lot more to answer for to the American people, because this whole fake Russiagate scandal has, in a lot of ways, really destroyed parts of the country and really hurt American foreign policy and U.S.-Russia relations. And most importantly, getting rid of any momentum to get rid of nuclear weapons whatsoever is completely gone now. And it seems like, not only the U.S. and Russia, but now several other states are putting their foot on the gas pedal to make more nukes, potentially mainly China, I'm talking about there. And had the U.S. and Russian relations been better, we're working on building more nuclear control deals. I think China's less motivated to make more nuclear weapons, even with Trump's hostile rhetoric. If he's not talking about ramping up the nuclear warfare against Russia, China's probably less worried about the U.S. nuclear arsenal. So those are just kind of the big things that I was thinking about when I read this story.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the first point you made there, and the other ones too. But just to elaborate a little more on what the first one, that Clinton, it does seem like at some point her campaign decided that they're going to launch this attack, that they're going to, they're plotting this whole attack on Trump about how he's a Russian puppet, and it doesn't seem like it was something they sort of organically came to that conclusion. It does seem like they her campaign put this together as a strategy of how to explain, either losing the election or to try to, before slightly beforehand to try to tank Trump with that. So
Right. So, Will, is there any, I don't know, documents potentially coming, or is there anything else that you heard from Ratcliffe, or any other indication that we could get more information on this to help confirm whatever was in the Russia intelligence report, or whatever else was came out through these documents? or is it going to be, hopefully a really great journalist like Gareth Porter reads this, goes out there and has to like, do the legwork to confirm it, or if government plans on releasing more documents or something like that.
I haven't seen any like explicit indication that that could happen, but I think it's not. I think the Senate now has these documents that have been declassified by Ratcliffe, and so I guess maybe they could, I think, put that into the public record if they, were willing to do that. But yeah, unfortunately, I think we have to kind of rely on people like Gareth Porter and investigative journalists to dig that stuff up. I'm not too like confident the government's going to put that out, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, we do have Rand Paul, and not that I think Josh Hawley is, a libertarian senator or anything, but at least two
Right.
senators who I do think kind of understand Russiagate. I don't know if they understand to the extent that me and you do, but I do think they understand that this was a coup attempt against the president. And understanding that, maybe they will uh, read stuff into the record, especially if Trump's having trouble like campaigning or something and needs some wins. Boy, that would be some big wins to, drop and distract everybody from Trump's coronavirus. More proof that, potentially Hillary and the Obama administration in some way were involved in cooking up this whole Russiagate scandal against Donald Trump, which I mean, has been so destructive for the American people. And I get, not to mention the fact that like Hillary Clinton has since spun this narrative against anti-war progressives and, women of color like Tulsi Gabbard, right? Where it's because of this narrative that she's able to make the completely unfounded and slanderous allegation that Tulsi Gabbard, who's a active duty, I think, National Army Guard medic, major serving, who has served in Anbar, Iraq, as being somehow a traitor to her country because she doesn't believe this whole Russiagate thing. The narrative is just so powerful that if they're involved with this and that they've had something to do with it, they're just some of the worst people for destroying American society. But maybe a lot of Americans will get really pissed off about that, and I think they would take that out on by at the very least not voting for Biden, but potentially even voting for Trump. I think this could be big.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess last thing I'll say here, you're talking a lot about just how effective this Russiagate stuff has been to U.S. foreign policy. I would encourage people to read our long write up on this at the Libertarian Institute, Dangerous Game. If you just Google Dangerous Game, Will Porter, Kyle Anzalone, Libertarian Institute, you'll find our big write up on the fallout of Russiagate overall. So that's worth reading, I think.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Paloma Verde. Paloma Verde makes excellent CBD products. Their website has all the different products that they sell on the shop page. I personally really like the CBD extract. You just take a little bit of it and about 1 milligram put in your mouth, and pretty quickly it starts to take effect and for me relieve some back pain and some tension. I've been talking about my big move recently. I spent about 18 hours in the car in one day. I
God
did
dang.
the driving for about 13 hours of that myself. And I gotta say, the next day I expected to be pretty sore. I doubled my daily CBD intake, and things I gotta say have been pretty great. A little soreness, but not too much discomfort really. And I think a lot of it has to do with the CBD products really helping with that information. So check out Paloma Verde. They are legit CBD products. These aren't the gummy worms that you buy at the head shop. These are pills that make sure that if they say there's 10 milligrams of CBD, that there's 40 milligrams of CBD. That's what's in those products, and then you could learn about CBD on the website. And how it could help you and how you should take it. So everybody visit Paloma Verde Store .com, and links are in the show notes page and on the YouTube channel, so very easy to find. And then once you got your all of your CBD products picked out and you're in the checkout line, all you do is you type in the promo code PEACE at checkout, and when you spend $75, you get 25% off. You can also sign up for the mailing list at Paloma Verde store.com, and when you do that, you get additional 10% off your first order. Will, let's get back to the show.